Hi, welcome to another edition of Conversations on Hope. I'm Jana. Before we get started with my first guest, I wanted to make a quick update. A little over a year ago, my sister Heidi started this project. At the time, she was courageously battling stage 4 stomach cancer. Sadly, in May of this year, we lost my dear sister to that disease, but before she passed, she asked me to carry on these conversations on hope. Heidi's vision for this project was to provide a safe place for people from all walks of life to share their stories of hope through personal loss and life's inevitable challenges and hardships. Shining light on the hope through dark times will help provide encouragement, community, and healing. I'm honored to carry on this torch of this project for Heidi. For as it is written in Scripture, hope is an anchor for the soul. I just wanted to introduce my first guest is Shannon, and she's here today. I've only known Shannon for about 2 years, but it seems like I've known her a lot longer. She has a wonderful spirit and a wonderful outlook on life, and she has a wonderful story, and that's why we wanted to share this. So thank you, Shannon.
You're welcome. It's my honor. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we'll just dive right in. You had your first 2 children. You had 2 boys.
Mm-hmm.
They were under the age of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And tell me a little bit about what happened when you, before you got pregnant with your 3rd child,
Okay.
as far as any physical symptoms.
So for about 2 years, I had trouble catching my breath. It started we were in Mammoth Lakes, California, and I was on the 2nd floor of a condo, and I went upstairs to check on my second-born, my son Bradley. When I got to the top of the stairs, I passed out, woke up on the bed, didn't know what was wrong, chalked it up to altitude sickness, and then came back home, and I was still having trouble breathing, shortness of breath, could not climb my stairs without having to catch my breath. So at that point, we decided we needed to go see a specialist. We went to a few cardiologists, a few pulmonary specialists, test upon test upon test. They said, we're not sure what's wrong, you're a mystery, everything seems fine, you're young, everything seems fine. So we're gonna, go ahead and just, we'll keep doing tests and keep an eye on you and see how things go.
And it was pretty sporadic.
Right, absolutely.
Not all the time, just
right.
certain
Not all the time, just
exertions.
Kind of spreads. Exactly.
Okay.
Any kind of exertion. So then one of my last visits, a cardiologist said to me, we've come to the conclusion we believe that you have anxiety. And so my husband and I, they said, we'd like to put you on anxiety medication. And my husband and I at that point knew we wanted to have another child. And so we said, we weren't comfortable going down that path. We wanted to get another opinion and so forth. So we decided not to do that, and we ended up getting pregnant with our 3rd. And during that pregnancy, that's when my symptoms got progressively worse. So it started as small shortness of breath, and as I grew within my pregnancy, it became as if an elephant was sitting on my chest. So I literally could only walk up our stairs 2 stairs at a time and sit to catch my breath. A couple stairs at a time, sit to catch my breath. And it got to a point where I would even go to the doctor to get my regular checkups, and they would say, oh, it's the baby putting pressure on you. It's this and that. Because, again, they did not know I had what I have. Mm-hmm. So throughout the pregnancy, it just got progressively worse until it was the day to give birth. 2 weeks early, Malia my daughter came 2 weeks early. We didn't anticipate that because we thought we had another 2 weeks, but evidently, looking in hindsight, they had told us my body was expelling her and trying to get rid of her. So when I went into the hospital, they gave me an epidural, and right when they gave me the epidural, I passed out. And that hadn't happened with the boys before. So they came in, and again, you're a mystery, we're not sure what's wrong. My daughter was born in 15 minutes. The epidural didn't even get to kick in before she came out because, again, my body was expelling her. And then really the progression just started from there. My body was filling up with fluid. So everything of any liquid I was drinking, water, everything I was taking, I just could not, I couldn't go to the bathroom at all. It was just, it was filling up in my body, and it was starting to just pockets of fluid within my body. They tried to even do a catheter to try to get the fluid out, and they couldn't get the fluid out with the catheter either. So, and they were pushing on my stomach and trying, doing everything they could. And again, they chalked it up to it's the pregnancy, because again, nobody knows the history because I was misdiagnosed to begin with. Mm-hmm. So at that point, I was in the hospital for 2 days. They sent me home. They said, it's fine, you'll be fine. It's because of the pregnancy. Again, not knowing I had what I have. Went home. The next morning, woke up. I was nursing my daughter, and my husband and boys were at the store. And I just remember after I nursed her, I laid her down next to me.
And this is how many days after you brought Malia home? 3 days.
3 days after. And then when I set her down, I went to get up to go to the restroom, and I sat up and I just couldn't breathe. It was this, like I was literally being suffocated. The best way I can explain it is maybe putting a bag over your head and squeezing tight and then no air. And that was literally how I felt.
And you were all alone?
All by myself.
With a newborn?
Yes. Called my husband immediately and told him what happened. He rushed home as quick as he could, had our family come over to watch the boys, brought our daughter with us to the hospital. He just said, we need to take you in. We need to walk in the hospital. We took Malia with us because I was nursing. We showed up to the hospital. They told him what was going on. They came in, got me a wheelchair because it was really difficult to walk, again, with the pockets of fluid and hard to breathe. I sat in the wheelchair, and when a doctor came in to see me, it was literally, the best way to explain it was just like an episode of Grey's Anatomy. It was like doctors everywhere were coming in and telling me, we need to get her on, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay.
We need to admit her immediately. And my husband was still, what's going on? We don't understand. We just had a baby. Everything is fine. He's like, they had put tubes on me. They were checking, the neurologist came in to see me. They were trying to figure everything out. Come to find out at that time, important point in time, I was having congestive heart failure. Mm-hmm. And again, my husband was on cloud 9. We just had a baby, so he thought, it had something to do with, the pregnancy, but he was, everything was fine. And he said that the part that was the most difficult is when someone walked up to him and said, one of the nurses said, "Sir, you need to find somewhere to take your child, your baby, and come back. Your wife is having congestive heart failure." And he was like, "I don't understand. What's going on? I don't understand." He's like, "Your wife is having congestive heart failure. This is life-threatening. You need to take someone to watch your baby." So in his kind of autopilot, went home, took our daughter home, and came back. And when he came back, again, I was in ICU for 4 days. So in that period of time, they were able to control the congestive heart failure. However, within that time, I had neurologists coming in. I had another pulmonary specialist, another cardiologist. Again, within 4 days being there, finally, the blessing in disguise was the original pulmonary specialist who had come in, who started it all, came in and said, "We're going to ambulance you to UCSD, to Thornton Hospital, which is a well-renowned pulmonary specialist hospital, and we're gonna send you down there and get more testing done to see what's happening." Mm. And at that point, it was basically, let's get you in an ambulance and drive and take you down there. So that's what they did. So after 4 days in the hospital in ICU, they took me down to the hospital, and once we got there, a doctor came in there to see me, Dr. Victor Test, who to this day I say he was my angel, my blessing. Mm-hmm. He came in and great sense of humor, and which is perfect for my Rob and I. Came in and said, based on your symptoms and based on what I know, I believe that you have pulmonary hypertension. However, we're not entirely positive, but we're going to do a heart catheter procedure tomorrow. And for those who don't know what that is, it's basically they take a needle and they go through the groin. They can also go through the neck, but in my case, they went through the groin, and it's like a balloon, and it goes in through your heart, and it kind of looks to see what the pressures are within your lungs. So they have to go through and see what's going on inside, and that's the only way they can do it, to find out. So, and the doctor said, we're going to do that for her, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the therapies at that point. Once they did that, I was kind of sedated, still asleep. They came in to talk to Rob and basically said she was a lot worse than we thought. We didn't have any options. We had to put her on intravenous medication immediately.
Wow.
If she would have gone misdiagnosed any further, she would have died within 6 months. At this point, she has 3 to 5 years to live. We had no choice but to put her on intravenous medication. So basically, I had a port. It was tube. The tube went in a bag that I carried on the back of me. So they immediately put me on that. So again, another kind of kick in the gut for Rob, because he's like, okay, now this is happening, and what does this mean? So we were,
in addition to the stress of a newborn,
right,
newborn,
right,
and 2 little boys under the age of 5,
right, exactly,
dealing with all of this.
And the part that was even more difficult is when you're in that, when your body reacts to such shock of what's going on. I was like hallucinating in the hospital, because I woke up multiple times saying, did I have a baby? Did I dream that, or did I have a baby? Because my body was so, I think, in shock from everything, from giving birth, then this going on, then the immediate putting me on the medication, that I think I was just in this fog of what's happening in such a quick period of time. So we were there for 2 weeks. I was told that I would be wearing, it's called Flolan, it's the intravenous medication, that I'd be wearing that for the rest of my life. Because basically the last resort after you're put on Flolan is a lung transplant. So Flolan's kind of the last thing, like once you're on that, the next thing is the lung transplant. So in my mind, again, I have 3 kids under the age of 5, and I'm going to be carrying this bag of medicine with me for the rest of my life, is what, at this point, of what I'm thinking. So that happened. I was released from the hospital after 2 weeks, went home, had to readjust to life, being a mom of 3. I do have to say, though, in that period of time, I've never felt so loved or had so much support from so many people. People who did not know me. For the 2 weeks I was in the hospital, my husband's aunt and uncle were at our house watching our kids. My mom was there, and then Rob's aunt and uncle. And in that period of time for 2 weeks, we had people delivering food every day, diapers for my daughter, formula, toys for my kids. People who did not know me, did not know my husband or I at all. People who did know us, but people who didn't know us. The most incredible people ever. For 3 months, we had that happen, delivered to our home. So in that period of time, I was home. I had to adjust. So for 3 months, I was on the intravenous medication. Then my doctor decided to do another heart catheter procedure. And he said, I just want to do this one more test, because I want to see if you're called a responder. And a responder is basically somebody who responds to the nitrous oxide that they have to put in your body. There's signs for that. And if you do respond, then you can possibly test other therapies. However, he's very clear on saying this might not work. So I'm letting you know ahead of time. I don't want to get your hopes up. I want to be realistic about this. So we went in with that mindset that, however, I just had a gut feeling. I can't explain it. When I was laying there, because you have to be awake. You're sedated a little, but you're awake. And I can't explain the feeling of knowing something is going through your heart, because your heart starts to palpitate even faster. But to have that feeling is very surreal, just to be in that situation.
I bet.
So doing that, the good news was, when it was over, he said, you're a responder. He said, typically people who get on intravenous medication don't get off of it. You are going to get off of it, and we are going to try oral therapies. So from this point forward, we tried various oral therapies. At the beginning, I took about 17 pills a day. So I really had to adjust to that. Then as it progressed, my pill intake has decreased. And again, starting at, being told at one point you have 6 months to live if you would have continued to go misdiagnosed, to having 3 to 5 years to live, to now being alive and living at 11 years, that life is precious, and I don't take one day for granted. I enjoy each and every moment of it. My kids know that. There's so much love and hope and just strength I feel from what I went through to where I'm at now. Mm-hmm. And I really, really believe it had a lot to do with the support system I had around me. Mm-hmm. I had people who knew me, people who didn't know me, just the care and love and the positive look on life. Because I could lay in bed and just put the covers over my head and worry.
And did you have days like that?
I did, absolutely. There were days where I struggled with not knowing what tomorrow would bring and worrying about my kids and worrying about not seeing them, grow up, and absolutely you go through that.
And what helped you in those darkest moments? What helped you get through that and just keep the hope and just take one day at a time? What were the things you had mentioned? The love of complete strangers. Obviously your husband is an angel of a man.
Absolutely.
And your children, and seeing the faces of your children, any mother looking at the faces of their children, that gives you insurmountable hope.
Absolutely.
But I mean, were there other things that just kind of helped you get out of bed and make a choice that I'm going to live this day to the best that I can, or the fullest that I can, and not worry about tomorrow? Because I think so many of us, we do get mired down in the worry and the anxiety, but it's almost like a choice. I'm going to choose this day, and it sounds like that was kind of your road that you took, was every day is precious, and I'm just going to take it one day at a time, and it progressively got better, but
absolutely.
So
and
scary.
It is. It definitely. And again, you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you don't know it. And I just felt like, if I can share a little part of my story, when I was in the hospital, there was a time when my grandmother, she was in the hospital, and my grandfather, he had already died, and she had told my stepmother a story of, she woke up one of the times when she was in the hospital, and she saw my grandpa at the end of her bed. Then the next day, she had a nightmare that she was covered in blood. Third day, she died from internal bleeding, my grandmother.
Wow.
When I was in the hospital, the day before I was being discharged, I smelled the scent of my grandmother.
Wow.
And I literally, in that moment, thought either she was coming for me and saying it's time. But when I woke up the next day, it gave me a sense of strength and peace, because she was telling me, you're not going anywhere. You have kids to raise, you have a husband, you have a life, and you've gotten this far, and you're a fighter, and it's your time. It's your time to stay and to do what you need to do for your family and for you. And I definitely believe that staying positive, having that hope, having a great support system, and really telling my story has really given me that hope and that peace. And I do know people who have passed away from my illness, and those times are hard. I'll be honest; those times are very difficult for me, because it puts that in perspective, and it kind of comes back to me in a sense. However, there's also that part of me that says that's not me. I can't go down that path. I need to focus on me. I need to focus on my health and being there for my family and for my friends. And I give back all the time.
Yeah, when you say you focus on you, I mean, you are such a selfless person that when you say that, I kind of have to laugh, because you don't focus on you. You are a radiant light, and
thank you.
And so, you are very selfless, but you are focusing on the right things about yourself.
Right.
And let's talk about, fast forward, Malia is now 11 years old. And so were given this diagnosis of 3 to 5 years and have outlasted that.
Right.
Which is unbelievable. It's just wonderful. It's a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but talk a little bit about the modifications of your lifestyle. I mean, you can't do everything. You were very active when you were a child.
Right.
Very athletic, could play sports, but now how have you had to kind of taper that and modify it so that you can still live within a healthy means within your diagnosis? Because it hasn't gone away. You still have your illness.
Right, definitely. And I do have to tailor that. And the way I have to do it, I do have to wear a heart monitor. So if I work out, I have to wear a heart monitor. And if my my heart rate gets, higher than a certain, like say 150, I think it is at this point, then I have to kind of, tailor it a little bit. It's also with, my family's very active, but that, and again, I don't let that alter my life because I am an active person. And actually I used to be on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner. And so my doctor used to give me a hard time because I still dirt bike rode. And so he would say, please don't tell me you went dirt bike riding again this weekend. And I'm like, I did. And he's like, I'm like, I know. Because I have to alter my life, but I don't want it to cripple me in a sense that I need to be who I am to really live life. And I don't want to be, I don't want to be, like careless with it.
Right. You're not Evel Knievel on the dirt bike.
No,
You're
totally,
just riding the dirt bike.
Just riding the dirt bike. Yes, exactly. And just, again, altering my life, but also still doing it. We like to hike. We like to zip line. We've gone, whitewater rafting, rock rappelling, and it's all those things. But again, it's the elevation. I just have to be careful with, exerting myself too hard at, and I feel like I've gotten a grasp on that, yet still living a full life.
Yeah.
Without not, it's, so yeah, again, that's just,
and the most important thing is you're making wonderful memories with your family and your friends. And that's what, at the end of the day, any of us want is to say, you know what, I had a wonderful time. I have a wonderful relationship with the people that I love and wonderful memories. So it's really cool to see. And, I know how adventurous your family is.
Yes.
And so what do you hope for the future?
To be honest, I mean, obviously for the future, I would love for a cure for my illness. I mean, that would be great. Something I do want to share on the side about my husband and who he is as a person is when I was diagnosed with my illness, they have pulmonary hypertension. They have bracelets, and it's called Empowered by Hope, and that's what the bracelet says. And he has worn that same bracelet since I was diagnosed for 11 years.
Wow.
It's kind of gray now because it's faded over the years, but that's something he carries with him. And I always think of that. And to be honest with you, when I look at him and I see that bracelet on his wrist, that gives me hope. Yeah. That empowers me to see that, I do have that support system. What I hope for the future is, I just hope that there is, again, I just want to be the light for others who are struggling. I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to, I'm hoping my kids learn from me in terms of that I never gave up, that I always was positive and just had a great, outlook on life and living life to the fullest. So
and tell your story about Malia, when she first heard about the full story of what happened, and she was having feelings that, I could have killed mommy. And how did you take that situation and teach this little girl that just the opposite?
So I shared with her that if it wasn't for her, that she actually saved my life. Because if we never would have had Malia, if I never would have been pregnant, the doctor said that my heart would have given out gradually, and I would never have known I had the illness that I have. However, with Malia, it kind of catapulted it, and they were able to diagnose me faster than they would have before. So I say to this day that my daughter saved my life, because if it wasn't for her, I never would have found out I had what I had, and never would have been able to, be treated at the time that I was treated, and given the proper therapies for my illness. So she absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, saved my life, because I call her my angel.
Yeah, that's very special. She's got tears in her eyes right now. So, well, thank you, Shannon, for sharing.
Welcome.
You're my first interview, and I know Heidi's very proud.
Oh, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Yeah. And I just admire you for taking on the reins of this, and I think that she would be so proud of you.
Thank you.
Welcome.